Hey there, thank you so much for tuning in to another AAA session, Ask Alyssa Anything. Every Wednesday, I hop on here to answer your questions about the publishing industry and writing a better book. So thank you so much to everyone who has been engaging with these sessions, and I'm so glad that we're able to connect on this more direct level. Let's get a few pieces of housekeeping out of the way before we dive into today's questions. The first is to subscribe if you haven't already to join this amazing community of writers. 2, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button for the YouTube algorithm because it really helps out my channel and helps me reach more people. And 3, if you haven't heard me talk about it yet, I have a free resource for any writer who currently has a working draft. It is called my Story Self-Assessment Worksheet, and it is an easy, fun, simple quiz that'll help you think about your story differently and help you identify areas that are weaker in your manuscript and areas that are currently pretty strong. Hopefully, it helps you turn back to your draft with new energy and direction. Downloading that resource is going to opt you into my newsletter, where I publish exclusive interviews with published authors and publishing industry professionals. So you don't want to miss out on all the amazing insights they are giving, and you'll get those straight in your inbox. If you just want to check out the newsletter, I have a link to that in the description as well. All right, so let's dive into the first question today. Hi, Alyssa. I was wondering how common it is for books to die on submission, specifically debut books. I feel there is a lot of talk and tips surrounding getting a literary agent, but the process after that seems kind of unclear, especially since the whole dying on submission makes me super nervous. I appreciate you bringing this up, and it's so true that we talk a lot more about how to get a literary agent than what happens after, and the possibility that your book could not be published, which is what I'm presuming you are referring to when you're talking about dying on submission. So let's talk a little bit about what happens after you get a literary agent. Most agents have some kind of editorial inclination, and typically they will want to work with you on another draft or 2 or 3 of your manuscript before they feel it is ready and completely polished to submit to publishing houses. So the beginnings of your relationship with your agent will really be more similar to an editor and author relationship, where they're giving you feedback. Maybe they're even writing inline comments in your manuscript draft, and you're really going to collaborate in that way to strengthen your manuscript so it is as strong as it can possibly be when it goes out to editors at publishing houses. That's because publishing is highly, highly competitive. You know that if you're in the querying journey, right? And it is still competitive even after you get an agent, because agents are then in the position of submitting their clients' manuscripts to publishers, and publishers are only going to accept a certain number of books to then go through with for publication, right? That's why it is really important for you to have a good relationship with your agent and that you are both editorially aligned, because working on your draft with them is going to be very critical, especially in the early stages of your work together. So ideally, you and your agent do some edits together, and then you feel really good about your draft. At this point, it is ready to go on submission to editors at publishing houses who are in the position to acquire and make book deals with literary agents. In the ideal world, your agent submits your manuscript to a selection of editors, and then one or more of those editors makes you an offer for publishing. But what you are alluding to with this question is the alternative outcome, which is if your agent submits your manuscript to editors and then no one makes you an offer. Now, it is important for you as an author who is planning to go down the traditional path to understand that this is a possible outcome. But at the same time, I don't want you to feel discouraged, because I have seen authors go through it, and it does not necessarily mean game over for you, your career, or even for this particular book. So say that your agent submits the book to all of the editors at all of the big 5 imprints that they think are best suited for your manuscript, and they all say no. Then what are they going to do, right? While big 5 imprints are the most prestigious in the publishing industry and likely the imprints that are going to make you the largest book deals, they are by far not the only means of getting your book published. There are many other smaller publishing houses that also have amazing sales and amazing reputations. So in the case that your book, quote unquote, dies on submission to the big 5 editors, agents will often then go to these other publishers that are not necessarily as big as big 5 publishers, maybe don't have as many resources, but are still highly reputable and will still support you throughout your publishing journey. Many authors swear by these publishers and actually have really fruitful careers with them. So it is not a bad outcome for you at all if your agent then submits to these smaller publishers, and that's how you get a book deal. So let's talk about the next outcome, which could be that even those editors at the smaller publishing houses also decline your book. Then what are you gonna do? In many cases, you're gonna work on your next book, and your agent is going to stick by your side and say, hey, it didn't pan out this time, let's try again in 6 months or a year, and in the meantime, let's work on your next idea. Sometimes it's the case that your next book is actually the first book that gets you an offer from a publishing house. And sometimes, once you establish a relationship with an editor and a publisher, then they will look at the other manuscripts that maybe you shelved a while back that never got a book deal, and then those will actually see the light of day again and find a home. If you are really concerned about this dying on submission possibility, I encourage you to talk about it with any agent who is offering you representation. This is an important conversation for you to have, and it is a really good idea to have this conversation up front before you get professionally involved. Ask the agent, what is your plan of action if we submit this book to publishers and no one takes it? Has this happened to you before? And what was the outcome with that author? These are really fair questions, and then it sets expectations so that if this does happen to you, you know what the agent's plan of action is. The last point I'll make on this is that I don't want the fear of quote unquote dying on submission to keep you from querying and keep you from going on your publishing journey. I don't have any statistics of how many books end up dying on submission because that is not something that authors or agents really publicly share because it is a bad outcome, right? They don't necessarily want to publicize that. But I will tell you it happens, and I will tell you that it is not the end of an author's career by any means, and I'm sure that there are authors you've heard of who have had a book die on submission, and yet they are still enjoying success and getting their books out there. Here's another question. Any thoughts on Twitter-style pitch events as a way to find an agent versus the query submission route? They seem to be polar opposite methods in that writers are advised to do a lot of homework before querying, but pitch events are much more like casting a wide net to see what fish happen to be biting. Any pros, cons, or considerations? If you are active on Twitter and there is a Twitter pitching event that makes sense for your book, there's no harm in throwing yourself out there and seeing if agents come to you. There are success stories of authors finding their agents via Twitter pitch events and ultimately getting book deals out of them. Is it the most common way to find a literary agent though? No. The most common way is unfortunately the tried and true method of querying and going through the quote unquote slush pile. So I definitely would not abandon the standard query process, especially because many agents don't participate in pitch events, especially agents who are more highly established because they don't need to, right? They're not necessarily seeking new clients as vigorously as maybe a newer agent or an agent at a smaller agency. So you don't want to miss out on opportunities to query those agents who are not going to participate in pitch events. That said, there are plenty of very reputable agents participating in pitch events, typically agents who are, as I mentioned, hungrier for clients right now, and agents who are just more keen on social media. My one caution with Twitter pitching events, because with a Twitter pitch event, agents are coming to you in either messaging you or liking your tweet, it is very important for you to still vet them very thoroughly as you would before you choose to query them. Just because an agent is coming to you and expressing interest does not mean that they are necessarily going to be the right agent for you. And there are still red flags that you should watch out for with anyone who is claiming to be an agent. So if an agent likes your tweet during one of these pitch events, put them to the test. And I have another video that goes into how to vet literary agents, so I will link that in the description for you. But to give you an overview, you will still want to go to their website, you will still want to look up their name in Publishers Marketplace to see what their prior deals are, and you absolutely will want to speak to them before signing an offer of representation. So there's absolutely no harm in participating in Twitter pitch events in addition to typical querying if you are so inclined. It's not something you necessarily have to do. If the idea of a Twitter pitch event scares you or just does not appeal to you though, don't feel the need to participate because again, the most common way of finding a literary agent is still the typical query process. I hope you found today's questions interesting and helpful, and if you have something you'd like to ask, drop it in the comments here and it will be added to my queue. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up button to help out my channel, and go ahead and grab that free story self-assessment resource in the description below and check out the link to my newsletter. Thanks so much for watching and happy writing.